You know the feeling, don't you? That sudden, inexplicable heaviness settling into your bones after a conversation with certain individuals. You walk away, and it feels as though gravity has doubled. Your limbs are made of lead, your mind is a fog of static, and your spirit, that quiet, vital hum getting you out of bed in the morning, is completely hollowed out. You haven't run a marathon. You haven't lifted heavy weights. All you did was sit across a table and listen. Yet you are entirely depleted. We brush it off usually. We tell ourselves we are just tired, or that it is just another Tuesday in a loud, demanding world. But if you slow down and truly pay attention to that exhaustion, you will realize it is not physical at all. It is a profound existential ache. You have just been fed upon. Jean-Paul Sartre famously declared that hell is other people, but we frequently misunderstand his meaning. He was not talking about overt cruelty or physical torment. He was addressing the gaze of the other, the suffocating weight of having your reality twisted, defined, and consumed by someone else's neuroses. We live in an era where everyone is hyper-connected, yet so many of us are silently collapsing from the inside out, drowning in what Martin Heidegger called the they. We surrender our authentic selves merely to manage the emotional chaos of the collective. We nod, we smile, we absorb the complaints, the judgments, and the endless psychic static of those around us, believing it is our moral duty to hold their water. Think of an ancient towering tree in the heart of an old-growth forest. It stands tall, its canopy soaking in the sunlight, but at its base, a strangler fig has taken root. The fig lacks the strength to stand on its own. Instead, it creeps up the trunk, wrapping its tendrils tightly around the host, slowly siphoning the tree's sap and pulling it down into the shadows. The tree is dying, not from an axe, but from an embrace. This is the anatomy of an energy vampire. But the darkest part of this metaphor is not the parasitic vine. It is the unsettling truth that the tree offered its own bark for the vine to grip. Why do they latch onto you? We tend to paint these draining individuals as malicious masterminds, intentionally plotting to steal our joy. But the reality is far more tragic and unconscious. They are fundamentally running from themselves. Carl Jung gave a name to this denied terrain: the shadow. It is the repository of their repressed, unintegrated aspects, the anger they cannot own, the victimhood they secretly identify with, the chaotic void they absolutely refuse to look into. Because they cannot bear the crushing weight of their own inner darkness, they must project it outward. They need a receptacle to hold it for them. They need you. But why you specifically? Why do some people walk right past them entirely unscathed, while you get pulled effortlessly into the vortex? Here is where the reflection gets deeply uncomfortable. We love to label ourselves as empaths, wearing our exhaustion like a noble badge of honor, proof of our superior compassion. But empathy without boundaries is not a virtue. It is an ego defense. You absorb their chaotic frequencies because your own ego is remarkably porous. You lack a solid, grounded center. You are the grand tree offering up its bark because beneath your polite exterior, you are terrified of what might happen if you refuse to let the vine climb. You see, you have a shadow too. Yours is just dressed up in the socially acceptable, highly praised garments of the savior, the good listener, the martyr. You draw them in because your repressed need for validation, your underlying fear of abandonment, or your desperate desire to feel useful creates a perfect magnetic resonance with their need to dump. You are two sides of the exact same fractured coin, locked in a quiet, subconscious transaction. They get to offload their unbearable psychological pain, and you get to feel essential. You might think you are setting boundaries by just nodding silently or trying to emotionally detach while they vent. But energy does not care about your polite, physical silence. As long as you secretly believe that you are responsible for their emotional regulation, the transaction is taking place. You are bleeding out your life force because you have confused love with self-immolation. You are letting the strangler fig pull you down into the dirt simply because you do not know who you would be without the heavy familiar weight of it clinging to your branches. Let us peel back the final, most uncomfortable layer of this dynamic. We love to romanticize our suffering, painting the universe as a dramatic battleground between toxic villains and empathetic victims. But nature is far less poetic. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer described the fundamental reality of the universe as the will, a blind, relentless, and ravenous drive to simply exist, multiply, and consume. The person sitting across from you, unloading their bottomless grievances, is not a calculating mastermind. They are just the will acting out its primal hunger, instinctively seeking the path of least emotional resistance to survive another day. And why do they consistently find that path in you? Because you are trapped in an illusion of your own making. You are operating on a deeply ingrained linear calculation, the quiet assumption that if you are just good enough, if you endure enough of their pain, you will eventually earn their love or successfully fix their brokenness. You have turned your empathy into an emotional transaction, secretly believing that your boundary-less martyrdom is the necessary input to produce the output of a healthy, reciprocal connection. You sit there scanning the interaction like a mental metal detector, constantly checking if your painful sacrifice is working, waiting to see if it is finally leading somewhere positive. But the ravenous will does not care about your moral ledgers or your exhausting linear timelines. It only knows appetite. It will drink your sap until you are a hollowed-out husk, not out of inherent malice, but out of mechanical necessity. Here is the bitter pill you've been diligently avoiding. You are not being robbed of your energy. You are handing it over. By remaining anchored in the blast zone of their unintegrated chaos, you are not actually helping them heal. You are merely subsidizing their refusal to grow up. You have completely mistaken self-immolation for genuine virtue. The strangler fig never asks for permission. It simply climbs whatever is sturdy enough to tolerate its suffocating grip. You are willingly bleeding out your life force simply to avoid the terrifying, lonely freedom of putting your foot down and walking away. So, how do you finally untangle yourself from the strangler fig? You do not fight it. Fighting creates friction, and friction is just another form of energy transfer. The ultimate integration requires a radical shift in how you perceive your identity. You must realize that the you being drained, the exhausted empath, the burdened savior, is entirely illusory. It is a constructed ego, a fragile narrative built to navigate the world. As long as you cling to that specific identity, you remain a target. You are fiercely defending a fortress that does not actually exist, and the very act of defending it is what bleeds you dry. Instead of building thicker walls, you must dissolve the concept of the wall entirely. This is the profound truth at the heart of Eastern philosophy. You are not your turbulent emotions, nor are you the frantic thoughts swirling in your head. You are the quiet, spacious consciousness observing them. When the energy vampire begins to offload their heavy static, you do not have to absorb it. You do not have to fix it. You just watch it happen. You allow their panic to arise and fall. Recognizing their chaos is just weather. You are not the weather. You are the sky. This is not cold detachment. It is the truest form of compassion. Genuine compassion does not mean emotionally bleeding out to make someone else comfortable. It is the unconditional openness that does not require you to take on their suffering as your own. When you drop the ego-driven need to be their healer, the transaction abruptly ends. You look at them not as a monster, but as a deeply conditioned human running from their own shadow. You hold space for them, but you do not offer them your roots. The parasitic vine only survives if it encounters a solid surface to grip. When you anchor yourself in that still, non-dual center, you become entirely transparent. The frantic energy simply passes right through you, like wind blowing through an open window, finding absolutely nothing to latch onto. You remain rooted in the earth, breathing quietly, completely intact. The storm rages around you, but inside, there is only an untouchable, expansive silence. What happens after the vine finally falls away? You might expect an immediate rush of euphoria, a sudden, miraculous lightness in your chest. Instead, you are met with a deafening, uncomfortable silence. Without the chaotic static of the energy vampire to distract you, you're left entirely alone with yourself. The noise is gone, and the real work begins. This quiet void is what many spiritual traditions call the dark night of the soul. Stripped of the drama, you start to realize that the exhausting person sitting across from you was never just a parasite. They were a mirror. The relationships that trigger our deepest frustrations are often reflecting the exact emotional wounds we actively refuse to heal within ourselves. You loathed their insatiable neediness because you are terrified of your own hidden vulnerabilities. This is the essence of shadow work, the grueling, courageous process of looking at the dark, repressed corners of your own psyche and finally inviting them into the light. We have completely misunderstood what it means to be awake. Awakening does not elevate you above the messy, painful realities of human existence, nor does it magically solve all your practical problems. It does not grant you a permanent state of blissful detachment. Instead, it forces you to drop the ego's favorite masks, the selfless martyr, the noble savior, the long-suffering victim. You learn to stay grounded in the present moment, accepting both the light and the shadow without an urgent need to fix, control, or run away. You realize that genuine humility is not about shrinking yourself to accommodate another person's neuroses. It is about standing firmly in your own truth, recognizing your connection to the whole without losing your center. So, the next time the strangler fig reaches for your branches, you will not brace for impact. You will not eagerly offer your bark to prove your worth. You will simply look at them with a profound, quiet clarity. You will hold space for their storm without letting a single drop of rain rot your roots. You remain the tree, deeply anchored, unshakable, completely, unapologetically free.